Basically, I'm coming from the countryside. I lived next to an old watermill, which still functions. And my mother was always a fighter for nature. She was in the NGO sector, very active, was a teacher. And my father produced locally. So I had a strong connection with the country and the people living with nature. I had direct contact with nature and I enjoyed it since I was a child. And what gave me the impulse to go to politics and was decisive was, first of all, we fought a lot against nuclears during my childhood together with my parents. And the second thing is that when I came back from university, I did see that we developed in several areas, but we didn't develop in nature protection or climate protection because Luxembourg has a huge footprint. So basically, I wanted to change things and help develop in a more sustainable way. For us, the biggest challenge is to have not only clean energy, to go for 100% renewable over time, but also to solve the transportation problem. For us, the transportation sector is the most important sector of CO2 emissions, which means that's more than 64% of the emissions. And we have to work on that sector to have a shift to other forms of mobility, which means that during the last 5 years we have already changed the investment. 2/3 of the public money today goes to public mobility and to soft mobility. Basically, we have a lot of projects like the tramway, the railway, and also, for instance, the whole bicycle network is going to be more elaborated in order to make people move away from the car. But still we will have cars, so those cars have to be clean. So we have to go away from fossil to electric cars or new technologies. So this for us is very important beneath the efficiency in the renewable, and then we will have lots of movement in the building sector. We have been the first country in Europe to only build efficient houses since 2017. That's why in this sector we reduced by 12% over the last 10 years the CO2 emissions by just building in another way. And we have to think this further because we have all technologies already in place. The question is, how do we want to live? How do we want to create a better living quality, have more biodiversity in our urban areas, have better air quality in the urban area, and build very efficiently? So this is some of the key elements of the climate policies that we want to put in place in order to achieve what the objectives are. So we have big objectives and targets, but we also have for all sector already are developing plans in order to put this in place. We have been working a lot on climate finance, and we had, together with the UN Environmental Programme, we developed during 2018, together with civil society but also with the finance sector, a sustainable finance roadmap. And we now will establish a platform, or we established a platform in order to really guide us through this and put this into reality. And the important thing is that it is not only the environmental ministry, it's the Ministry for Environment together with the Ministry of Finance, together with the finance sector and civil society. So it's an approach where we want to have everyone in order to discuss about critical situations in this process and in order to put in place what is needed and to create an ecosystem that enables transition and that accelerates transition. But the biggest challenge is really to shift the trillions to mainstream sustainable and climate finance. That's why from the beginning we wanted to scale up what we do together with the finance sector. That's why we created during the last year a climate finance accelerator in order to give advice and to make capacity building with young finance managers in order to be creative and create new funds. So at the moment, if it comes to the international negotiations, I think making the link between biodiversity protection, ocean protection, and recognizing the important role of forests, oceans, if it comes to climate change is really important. Secondly, also developing in a sustainable way by respecting human rights, by respecting the important role of women in these processes is of utmost importance. That's why we have been helpful during the last years to develop some platforms where we have as well indigenous and also the women's work streams. This is of utmost importance for me because we have to have people on board. If it comes to the national policies, we have three main priorities. First of all, combating climate crisis. Secondly, work for biodiversity protection and nature protection, because this is our own livelihoods and our living quality that we will lose if we don't pay attention. And third big point is stopping pollution. So at the moment we are developing a zero waste strategy for Luxembourg and preparing for, which will help us out also if it comes to the climate neutrality that we plan to have at latest in 2050. So these things are all interlinked if we speak about sustainable development of a country. So first of all, I think it's of utmost importance, and you see it especially when you are a small country, that big progress is made when we are working all together. That's why I thought that it would be very useful that Europe, who has always been a leader in climate transition, who was the first continent to decide about climate directive, regulations on a European scale, I think you can make bigger progress together. And you have a stronger voice if you are all together. If we say Europe will be the first climate neutral major economy, and this is what we say, and all European countries next year will be united, I hope, and I work for it.